Hello, welcome to Credible Talk. I'm Aarica Mims.
And I'm Eric Hage. This is the podcast where we get to talk about all things commercial real estate and a lot more.
We do. And Eric, you know, what I think is so fun about this podcast is the wide range of people that we get to talk to. And so I'm super excited to be sitting next to Chris Nielsen today. He is the Executive Vice President of Product Support and Chief Quality Officer of Toyota Motor North America. Chris, thanks for being here.
Aarica, thanks very much, and thanks to you and Eric for making it easy for me as a name-challenged person.
Yes,
You've made this really easy. Thank you
Have
for
you
that.
looked at the spelling of our two names there? That's where you're going to catch most of the differences.
The double A will catch you.
Chris, thank you for joining us. We are really excited to chat with you today. And I know our teams, i.e. Mike Roseman and the project teams and our executive teams at KDC all speak so highly about you and your team.
Thank you.
Before we dive into you and your background, I wanted to share a little bit of the connection that we have with Toyota and you through the project that we developed for you guys. So in 2014, we were fortunate to be selected by Toyota to build your North American headquarters, which was relocated from Torrance, California, to Plano, Texas, to Legacy West specifically, which ultimately ended up breaking ground. First pier in the ground was in early 2015, and the project was roughly 2.1 million square feet. It spanned 8 buildings. It was a LEED Platinum project, and it was a burning 30-month schedule, which I don't think anybody figured could be accomplished. Am I right or wrong?
So we were hopeful.
Yes. So that's a little bit of the context of how we started forming the relationship with you. But can you step back for us a little bit and just start off by telling us how you ended up selecting, or why you ended up selecting KDC in the first place?
Sure. Eric, I have very, very clear memories of that. You know, we had made the decision to locate our new North American headquarters in Plano. And there was another important decision we needed to make. You know, it was really a merger of a sales company located on the West Coast, a manufacturing company located in the Midwest. And the manufacturing company had lots and lots of experience in building facilities, namely manufacturing plants.
Yeah.
Sure.
But we didn't have experience building corporate headquarters. So one of the first decisions is this going to be something we develop on our own, or will we be our own developer as what we typically do with manufacturing plants, or would we look to someone who has expertise in corporate headquarters? Well, as you can guess now, our decision was to go with a developer, and therefore, you know, the next step is who. You know, I think we collected an impressive list of candidates, all with great experience, great portfolios of projects they had developed, and of course, KDC kind of stood out among that group. But I can distinctly remember that first meeting that we had with Steve and Toby, just the immediate cultural connection that was so clear to us from the very beginning, that this was a partnership that was meant to be. Our values were aligned, our perspectives were aligned as we described what we wanted to achieve. You know, a merger of two different, while Toyota was on the name of the organizations, you know, culturally things feel a lot different in a sales company than in a manufacturing company. So a lot of work around how do we bring teams together? How do we get people to know one another, to kind of break down barriers that may exist so they can collaborate? And KDC was just all about hearing our vision and talking about how we could realize that vision.
Thanks for sharing that. So you did speak about one important thing which we've discussed with our team, which is that collaboration and why that's so important to bring the different groups together. What we have heard is that the concept of one Toyota was a very powerful concept that you rolled out within the different teams that were working on the project. Can you share why that was such an important concept?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. One Toyota was the concept, or maybe the brand would be another way of saying it, that we kind of wrapped around this notion of relocating, over 4,000 jobs, to a new headquarters location. In one, Toyota was really meant to kind of express our desire to create a unified culture, a bringing together of equals, so that we could really set ourselves up for success. We've always said for the next 50 years. We've had over 50 years in the U.S. This was all about the next 50 years, and One Toyota was, I'll say, the North Star, leading the way in doing that. So the concept, I think, was easy to understand.
Sure. Yeah.
The execution, of course, is difficult, and that's, I think, where the facility came in. For us, the facility wasn't just a building with some offices where people come to work. We really wanted to be just super intentional around, creating an environment where people can easily run into one another.
Yeah. These
spontaneous meetings, gatherings, collaboration, those kind of things, because we didn't really know each other. It was really two parts of an organization coming around where people didn't have those relationships. And I think KDC was able to hear that vision, and put us with Corgan, for example, as an architect that really then executed on that vision and really designed a space that allowed us to achieve what we were hoping to achieve.
What's so interesting about that is, it basically boils down to the experience your employees have within the facility, right? But you were so far ahead of the curve thinking about this in 2014, because now companies are kind of looking back and saying, how do I get my employees back? Well, you did this in 2014. You had, it's a LEED Platinum building. That was way ahead of its time for sustainability. And then you focused a lot on wellness because there's a lot of green space within the campus, right?
That's right.
I think there's 7 different outdoor venues, which, is also very important after the pandemic. Green space and collaboration space, and the overall experience has just been paramount. And so you guys have achieved that already.
Well, sometimes you can take credit for being smart. Sometimes you can be lucky. I think we may have been a little bit lucky with the timing that we were able to put this in place before COVID.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how our company would have not only survived, but really thrived through all the challenges of COVID without having come together as One Toyota. And while we did have to pivot and work primarily remote for a period of time, we're now adopting a hybrid style going forward, which will combine remote work and an in-person work. And, some of that involves really inspiring team members to want to come to the office, to want to work with one another, and having a space that was purpose-built for collaboration and the like is, I wish I could say we were smart enough to know what was going to happen, but we didn't.
I think you can claim it. You're smart enough.
But even if we're a bit lucky, man, we are just so fortunate now to have the facility that we have where people want to come to the office. They want to, meet with one another. You mentioned, the wellness spaces and the like. People are back to working out, back on the climbing wall, all those things that, we thought would make it a fun place where people would want to work. Boy, that is more important now by exponential levels than what we could have imagined.
So, Chris, I understand that you've been with the company for about 35 years. Taking a step back, what got you into the automotive sector in the first place? Was it your education? What was it? Your background? Was it your upbringing? What caused you to want to get into the automotive sector?
Well, my hometown is Detroit.
Okay.
But that's not the reason why I actually got into the auto industry. In fact, as I was growing up, I was dead set on not working in automotive because that's what everyone else did, right? I wanted to be different. But fast forward, when it came time to choose a college to go to, one opportunity for me was a college called General Motors Institute, which is, as the name might suggest, really closely affiliated with the automotive industry. It's a university that was actually started by General Motors and owned by General Motors for quite a number of years. I'll ask you a quick trivia question.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
There are only 2 universities in the U.S. that were started by private companies.
Oh.
One of them is my alma mater, General Motors Institute, which is now called Kettering University.
Kettering.
Do you know what the second one is?
I have no clue.
No clue.
All right. We're very close to it right here. It's University of Texas, Dallas.
Oh.
UTD, that was
Really?
started by Texas Instruments. So
That's interesting.
Yeah, the only two colleges in the U.S. started by a private corporation.
Fun fact
Now I
of the
feel
day.
dumb. I don't know that the university in our own backyard is started by TI.
But anyways, I digress with my trivia question. But it was a school where I could, through co-op experience, really work and pay my way through school, which was important for me to be able to do, and that really kind of set my pathway in automotive. How I then landed at Toyota, I actually joined Toyota right after graduation, but it was during those years I was co-oping with GM. I started hearing a lot about GM's partner in a joint venture out in the West Coast, which was Toyota. Back in 1984, the company started producing vehicles together at a plant in Fremont, California. Another trivia point, that is now Tesla's plant.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
really?
They now produce vehicles in that plant. But I heard all these things about Toyota and about how Toyota, really valued their team members, how they worked with suppliers and business partners, and all those things just really aligned with my personal values and beliefs, and it caused me to be interested. So when I was getting close to graduation, I put in an application. I interviewed with Toyota, who at that point in time was just building our first factory in the U.S. And long story short, I started with them when we were still finishing that construction project, and have been with them through a dozen more plant construction projects ever since.
I've never been in a vehicle manufacturing facility, but I can only imagine what it looks like. I mean, you see kind of like glimpses of it, but the amount of engineering and thought and just planning that goes into it seems incredible.
They're pretty remarkable places. Aarica will have to get you to maybe the San Antonio plant. That's the closest one. But I'll tell you, from having had a chance to actually run that plant in San Antonio for a number of years, that's kind of my baby. You'll walk in, you'll be impressed with all the millions and millions of dollars of equipment and automation and all that type of stuff. But I can tell you, even in 2023, with the amount of technology that's in those plants, at the end of the day, it's all about the people. It's the people that are putting the tremendous effort in every day to work safely, to produce quality products. It's still very, very much a people business, regardless of the amount of technology we pack into those plants.
Oh, that's so interesting. Toyota has said they're in the transition from a traditional automotive company to a mobility company.
That's right.
What does that mean?
That was the question we all asked. A number of years ago, I think it was January of 2019,
Okay.
Akio Toyoda was on the stage at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas and made the proclamation that Toyota was going to transition to become a mobility company. And everyone within Toyota asked the same question: what does that mean? But in just a few short years, I think we've really been able to wrap our head around, what exactly that means. Mobility is all about, it's moving people, it's moving information, it's moving goods. So it's a broader definition than I think of what we've thought about in the past. It's certainly enabled by technology. That's really the driving force behind this. If you think about the technology you're experiencing in your vehicle today, that allows you to be connected, that allows you to navigate your way around, doing those types of things. I mean, how many of us pull out a map anymore before we go somewhere, right?
I wouldn't even know where to find one.
So those are technology. And then, think about electrification, which is going to fundamentally change every single aspect of the automotive business. No aspect of that business is going to be untouched. So bringing electrified vehicles to market, safety technologies, to make things so much safer for consumers on the roads. I think all of those things are key parts about being a mobility company, which is really taking the definition more broadly than we have in the past.
Can you talk to us a little bit further about Toyota's goals for electrification, and I think we've got some stats, right, Aarica, that we've read regarding those goals. But I'd really like to hear it from you in terms of how those goals are going to be achieved and how Toyota is equipping itself from a manufacturing standpoint in order to achieve those goals.
Sure, that's a great question, and boy, I tell you, that is topic number one in every conversation we're having within the company, external to the company. I spent a week in Washington 2 weeks ago talking to elected officials, administration officials, exactly about what is Toyota's view on electrification. And really, it starts very simply. Our belief, our goal, is to reduce as much carbon emissions as possible, as quickly as possible. And this isn't new for Toyota. We have been the leader in doing that for decades now, going back at least 3 decades ago to the Prius, the first vehicle that was really called an electrified vehicle because it combined an electric motor with an internal combustion engine. Fast forward till today.
World's best mileage, by the way.
That's right. Well, fast forward till today, now we're talking a lot about battery electric vehicles, which is a great technology, which clearly is where we're heading in the future. But the question is really how soon? How quickly do we reach that future? There are some out there that believe that the goal should be getting as many battery electric vehicles on the roads as quickly as possible. In Toyota's view, that's not the right approach because it doesn't achieve the overarching objective of reducing carbon emissions as quickly as possible. Let me explain what we mean by that. We believe that a diversified approach, we call it a portfolio model that combines battery electric, plug-in hybrids, even hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, allows you to reach that goal more quickly. Because there's a lot of constraints that are in the place of trying to build battery electric vehicles. For example, the raw materials it takes to make the batteries, things like lithium and cobalt and nickel, those are in very, very short supply. And let me just throw some numbers out at you that I think will help to illustrate that. It takes about 500 pounds of those minerals to make one battery electric vehicle. You could take that same amount of minerals and you could produce batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids, or that same amount of material could be used to make 90 hybrid vehicles. Those 90 vehicles replacing 90 internal combustion engine vehicles will reduce carbon emissions 37 times more than a single battery electric vehicle. So in our viewpoint, until the supply chain, until the mining infrastructure, all those kind of things gets up and running to allow us to have an unconstrained supply of materials to make batteries, we're better to focus on what's the strategy to reduce carbon emissions as quickly as possible, which for us is the portfolio approach. That's one. We could talk for hours about.
That's really insightful.
Yeah, we could talk hours about other things. People often ask us about charging infrastructure.
Yeah. And
that's certainly, certainly an issue out there as well. But to me, the more compelling one is when we start bringing it to the individual consumer. And less than 50% of the people in the U.S. live in a home with a garage. Less than 50%. So think about it. If you don't have a garage where you can charge your vehicle overnight, where will you charge it?
Yeah.
If you live in an apartment complex, maybe you're, in another type of a multifamily. That's a real concern that I think goes to the question of consumer choice. And again, our belief with a portfolio approach is offering consumers the choice to make the best decisions that fit, their family situation, their lifestyles, while still achieving that goal of reducing carbon emissions.
Even if you converted all your vehicles into fully electric, that our infrastructure wouldn't be able to support that as it is today, right?
That's right.
Yeah. California has said that they want to be only selling zero emissions vehicles by 2035. Do you think that's something that's achievable?
I think it's really challenging to achieve that for the reasons I mentioned. It's the supply of the materials to make those vehicles. It's the charging infrastructure. It's the ability of individual consumers to have places to charge their vehicles. it's about affordability, as well. Currently battery electric vehicles are all classified in the luxury category.
Yeah, they really are.
Because of the price point that they're at. We really believe everyone should have the opportunity to participate in reducing carbon emissions. And from an affordability standpoint, battery electric vehicles are about 20% more expensive than other types of vehicles. So again, I keep coming back to the portfolio approach, but we really think it's the one that makes the most sense in order to deliver choice to consumers, but also to achieve the objectives of reducing emissions.
Us as developers, we're building buildings for the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with more and more electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles coming online, we have to think about, okay, how do we have the infrastructure within our garage? How many charging stations are we going to need? Do we need 7 or do we need 77? We're trying to figure that out right now. And so that's kind of it's a difficult thing to think about.
It is. And even questions, is it level 3 charger or level 2 charger? Yeah. There's just a lot of things that I think we have to figure out and sort out over time. But, you raise a good point. It's not only where people live, but it's where people work. It's where people shop.
Mm-hmm.
All of those, I think, need to be a part of the solution in terms of the ability to allow us to have mobility for wherever we want to go.
What is your favorite Toyota? What car do you drive?
All right, so I drive a Tundra. So I'm mindful of the fact that I'm the former plant president of the plant that makes the Tundra.
Okay.
So I feel a tremendous affinity and commitment to that. But living in Texas, you got to drive a pickup truck, right?
Totally.
Yes.
Totally.
But I'll tell you, my all-time favorite Toyota is the old FJs. This goes back in the late 60s and early 70s. I absolutely love those vehicles. One of my goals, my oldest son, Nick, who Mike knows very, very well. Nick always jabs me that I haven't bought one to refurbish. I've been saying I'm going to do that now for probably most of his lifetime. He's almost 25 now, but maybe that'll be a retirement project.
My parents still have an IS 300. Is that right? IS 300.
Yes,
it's one of the lower vehicles, the small car, and they still keep that, and they keep it maintained, and they think it's the most fun car to drive still.
That's so funny.
Yeah, people have real passions for their vehicles. The Solara convertible is one that we produced for a relatively short period of time, and there's not a huge number of them out there, but boy, people that have those absolutely love them and treat them like they're
Land Cruiser.
I was about to say the Land Cruisers.
There's got to be a push to get the Land Cruisers really back.
Oh, for sure. But I tell you, that's one of the fun things, working for Toyota is I just love to hear people's experiences with the vehicles they've driven. Oftentimes I hear, my first car was a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
It just really makes you proud of what you do, knowing that the product that our team works really, really hard to produce, brings joy to people.
This was incredibly insightful. And we always kind of close with something a little more like lighthearted. What do we want to talk about? Eric and I just throw things back and forth, and his always comes back to, let's talk about food. Okay, that's his favorite thing. I'm like, no, we're not going to talk about food today. But no, now we know that you are a self-proclaimed foodie.
I am.
So we're going to talk about food today.
I love that, by the way.
And I mean, he did tell us that we cannot ask him what his favorite restaurant is in Dallas.
That's right. I can't show favorites here,
Yes.
I don't want to make any enemies out there.
Yeah. So what's your favorite cuisine? What's your go-to if you're going out on a Friday night?
I would say my wife and I will toggle back and forth between French, a good classic French restaurant is always a special treat. Maybe a more casual fare would be Italian, especially we both love nothing more than a good charcuterie
Oh,
of
yeah.
Sure.
Italian cheeses and
Sure.
meats with
Yes.
a glass of wine. That's always a big winner. But when we're at home, we just kind of go back to I'll say some good old Texas roots kind of food. Just yesterday, my son Nick, who I was just talking about a minute ago, and I smoked a pork butt
Yeah.
and had a lot of fun doing that. And he's gotten into smoking a lot recently. He does briskets for us and the like. And
You use an actual smoker or an electric pellet smoker?
all right, you're gonna make me admit it. Yes, I have a Traeger.
Yes, I do too.
I
do
cheated.
Too.
I'm
okay with that.
I could not master just keeping the temperature level on a wood smoker. I am sad to admit that, but it's true.
Well, you want to take the mess up out of the equation when you're cooking something for 20
Yeah,
hours.
that takes so long.
You
Oh my
don't want
gosh.
to risk
Yeah.
screwing up the brisket, and the electric pellet smoker keeps that control in place, and it keeps that at a perfect temperature. So I agree with you. I'm to the same thought process.
We're not going to talk about favorite restaurant in Dallas, but if you think of any restaurant that you could go to tomorrow, where would you go?
All right, so if my wife and I both share a favorite restaurant. It's in New York City, Le Bernardin.
Okay.
It's a classic French seafood restaurant. In Las Vegas, and I'll say I love it, but not to the same level of my wife, L'Atelier.
Oh, yeah.
Another
Yeah.
fabulous French restaurant that anytime we're out there, and I we do quite a few events in Las Vegas, dealer meetings and the like.
Sure.
She will always be sure to get a reservation.
Always. Chris, we are so happy you joined us today. We're so appreciative, and this was incredibly insightful.
Very much so. Thank you.
Well, Eric and Erica, thank you. Made it a lot of fun, and really enjoyed being with you, and just really enjoy the tremendous relationship we have with KDC, going back to that very first meeting that I recall so fondly, and just how that has grown and developed, and how great partners we have become, not just in the development of our headquarters, but even in the years since then. So thanks so much for that.
Well, we feel the same about you, and we are excited to continue our partnership with Toyota. And like Erica said, we thank you immensely for your time today, and we hope this wasn't too much trouble, and hopefully you had a little fun while
No,
you
not
were
at
at
all.
it. as
It's been
we
great.
did.
It's been
And,
great.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to Credible Talk. We will catch you on the next one.